What's up, everybody? Brothers, sisters, psychonauts, and seekers of truth. It is Ananka, and welcome to my bazaar. Today, I have a 5 MAPB / alcohol / cannabis trip report for you. The title of this trip report is Better Than MDMA, and was submitted to Erowid in 2014 by the user Tommy D. With all that being said, let our story begin. I had originally been planning to do some 6 APB this particular night, but unable to obtain any, I ended up buying 200 milligrams of 5 MAPB from a trusted source. I had heard of this chemical before, but wasn't even aware it was on the market yet, so I was sort of surprised about it. I specifically remember somebody's comment that this should be the shit, so I was quite curious about it, wondering if it would live up to its expectations. Oh boy, I had no idea. T+0. I took a 100 milligram pellet at 5:45 in the busy food court in the middle of my city center. I was sat opposite my friend Jay at the time, as we were waiting to meet my girlfriend and her friend so we could head to a gathering. I was pretty nervous about taking a new drug in such a public place, without any previous experience with it. What if I came up too hard? Had a freak out? Vomited in the middle of a busy shopping center? But I swallowed my anxiety and the drug and sat waiting patiently. 10 hours. About 10 minutes later, Jay asks me to walk outside with him so he can smoke a cigarette. I was pretty glad that I had the chance to go for a walk and get some fresh air, as I was feeling kind of anxious, and I had that queasy stomach feeling you get just before coming up on any other type of stimulant. 40 hours in. It took exactly 40 minutes to come up. The feeling of going from off baseline seemed to happen very quickly. 1 minute I was completely sober, and then, boom, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I remember walking down a very busy street where somebody was singing through a microphone. Normally I ignore this kind of thing and go about my business. But now, I could hear this guy's voice loud and clear over everything else. And it actually sounded really good, even though I do not normally like this kind of music. I also noticed 2 girls dancing around to the man singing, and for some reason, it seemed to make me overwhelmingly happy. They looked so carefree and happy compared to everyone else, and it really stood out. Although at this point I felt completely sober, I was beginning to feel the empathy. 45 minutes in, me and Jay walked into the HMV music store, as we still had some time to kill before we could meet my girlfriend. We were in there for about 10 minutes, and basically, I walked in there sober as fuck, and came out rolling balls. There was a mirror in the shop, and I looked into it to check my pupils, and sure enough, they were huge. I then turned around and began to test out the different headphones they had. I found a pair of Marley headphones and plugged them into my iPod. Turned on one of my favorite Nero songs, and it happened. I blew up right there in the middle of HMV. The beat dropped, and wham, it smacked me across the face. My vision was shaking, my skin was tingling, my head floating away. I quickly ripped the headphones off my head and turned to Jay with a massive grin, saying, "Man, we need to get the fuck out of here." It was all too intense to be inside such a packed shop coming up so hard. 50 minutes in, we stepped out into the main road and began walking. Here I noticed that my vision had drastically changed, but not in any way that is easy to explain. It was just plain different, but I couldn't work out what it was. Almost as if everything is fuzzy, but buzzing with energy. It was at this point I noticed I needed to wee, so my friends stayed outside to smoke whilst I walked into the shopping center to use the toilet. I walked into a cubicle and began to piss. This drug is mostly non-visual, but whilst pissing, I had some very strong and disorientating visuals which looked as if the tiles on the wall were coming apart and rearranging themselves, and the cubicle walls were closing in on me. I literally ran out of that toilet pulling my zipper up, half freaked the fuck out and half excited. It was a relief to find Jay outside again, to say the least. 1 hour in, we sat at the tram station waiting for the arrival of M, my girlfriend, and her friend C. My body was literally buzzing with energy, and it felt like torture sitting there among sober people. I could feel it building up inside of me, and it needed to be unleashed, but not here. Finally, they arrived, and as soon as I saw M, all my anxiety seemed to drift away. I felt so happy that they were finally there. Me, J, M, and C jump on a bus and head to our friend's house for a gathering. An hour and 40 minutes in, we finally get off the bus and head to our friend's house, buying a packet of chewing gum on the way as my jaw was clenching hard. Even when in the shop, I was totally aware I had the typical rolling face. Eyes bugged out, sweating slightly, jaw swinging. We get inside to where everybody has begun to drink, and I tell my friend P about the 5 MAPB, and I offer him some. I take another 50 milligrams at this point, and he takes 50 milligrams. P is one of my closest mates, and is one of the best people ever to trip/roll/get high with, for many reasons, which I will get to. 2 hours in, 2 hours exactly after taking the first dose of the 5 MAPB, and I'm feeling one of the greatest euphorias of my life. It was just one of the best feelings ever to be in a room with my closest friends and my girlfriend, listening to all of our favorite music. I was as loved up as I'd ever been. The empathy and euphoria were overwhelming. The music would vibrate through my entire body, sending tingles of pure pleasure right from the top of my skull all the way down my back and through my legs. Dancing and talking flowed so easily, and everything was just basically perfect. We smoked a joint at some point during this time, also which seemed to increase the effects of the drug. 3 hours to 6 hours in, I had only given P 50 milligrams and was unsure whether he'd really get a come-up off it. I remember him being sat there for some time, quite obviously stoned, when all of a sudden he jumped up looking all happy and excited. I watched him for a couple of seconds and realized, yup, he's high as a kite. He then proceeded to beatbox. Oh, sorry, but it's just too funny. P is an amazing beatboxer, and we always notice different drugs affect his beatboxing skills. Oh my god. I still cannot get over how fucking good it was when he dropped it. It was making me rush just about as hard as I ever had, and this is coming from someone who has tried MDMA on many occasions. It sounded so crisp, and every noise he would make rolled down my spine, and the room was actually bouncing up and down in perfect sync with the beat. My thought process was becoming extremely profound, almost psychedelic, but without the mind fuck. Ideas and realizations were rushing through my mind about everything. Ideas about love, friendship, communication, emotions, social interactions were all running through my mind, and it all seemed so clear and simple. I remember looking at my girlfriend and being smacked across the face by how thankful I was to have her in my life. We had been together about 3 months at the time, and it was just so obvious. I was in love. I looked her in the eyes and asked her straight up, "Do you love me?" She nodded, and I could see the honesty in her eyes. And then I said it for the first time ever in our relationship. "Good, because I love you too." It felt so easy to say. The drug had removed all my barriers and defenses, and I was totally free to talk from the heart. Physical sensation was heightened to such an immense degree. Anything I touched would send shivers through me. Hugs felt like real embraces. Kisses were orgasmic, etc. Even inhaling the smoke of a joint felt so blissful. MDMA at this point would be beginning to wear off, but the drug was still peaking and would be for a very long time. 6 hours to 10 hours in. More of the same. Dancing, beatboxing, talking, smoking, and the high did not die down at all. At some point, everybody but me had passed out, as they had only been drinking and smoking weed. But we, of course, were well awake. Me and P have a habit of losing ourselves in these really long, deep, profound conversations. And this definitely happened here. We talked for hours about everything, stopping occasionally to go on an adventure for a cig or a beer or a spliff. We began drinking heavily at some point as well, not even thinking about what the effect alcohol would have on the experience. 11 hours in. Around this time, my girlfriend woke up and could not get back to sleep. It was P and M in the living room, and we just sat there talking. I remember feeling so happy, just sat there with one of my best friends and my girlfriend. The stimulant effect had pretty much worn off, but I still had a really cozy body high. That, coupled with the fact I was just sat with 2 people I love, drinking beer at stupid o'clock in the morning, had me feeling extremely content. 12 hours in. P finally drifted off, and then not long after M did. Cuddling felt so good at this point, but I was still unable to sleep. I got up and sat in a chair. It was at this point something happened. An immense feeling of gratitude toward life hit me. All of a sudden, I began bawling my eyes out. All the things that had been bugging me, my insecurities, problems, etc., were all of a sudden put into perspective. I finally understood life. A realization so big about life came over me that I find it hard to verbalize or explain. All I can say is right there I knew. I sat for about 15 minutes with the biggest grin, tears streaming down my face. It was so therapeutic to just sit there and cry. After it was over, I felt completely cleansed and at one with myself. I don't remember what time I fully came down, because at some point all the alcohol in my system seemed to take over. This was after the sun came up, and I found myself severely intoxicated. I remember looking at the clock and it being around 10 a.m. and thinking, "Shit, I am trashed," which I seemed to find amusing. I didn't completely sober up till that evening. Walking back to my mum's house with my girlfriend, it seemed that the drugs and the alcohol had caught up with me. I remember my body feeling trashed. I was so fatigued and dizzy. I felt as if I was going to keel over and die at any moment. But my mind state remained completely positive. I still felt completely loved up. I remember thinking, I'm dying, but oh well, if I did die right now, I would be completely content. I finally crashed out in my bed and slept till the next morning. It is now 3 days after the experience, and I feel amazing. There was no harsh come down. If anything, the opposite can be said. I feel a total love for life. It made me realize so many things, and I feel lucky to be alive. I felt more outgoing, less judging of people, more motivated. There are so many positive effects of this drug, the list is endless. The euphoria felt more real and less forced than it does with MDMA. The good feelings weren't just being generated by the chemical, but rather the things it was making me realize. What started out as a desire to get fucked up on drugs turned out to be one of the most eye-opening nights of my life. 5 MAPB. Better than MDMA. Alright, everybody. That is the end of our story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Share with us your 5 MAPB experiences down in the comments below. Check out the other videos and playlists on my channel, and I will see you in the next one, fam. Deuces.